The reality is that when online speech is allowed to flourish, it is the people who are already marginalized, who already live at the fringes of society, like actual fringes, not the marginalization that white male conservatives believe they're suffering from, but like black trans kids who are at a higher likelihood of violence and self-harm, for example. Those people are the ones who suffer the brunt of the abuses when platforms shirk any responsibility for moderation. And while the idea that my political content may become more visible under these new guidelines sounds nice, I'm skeptical that the reality will be anything other than the amplification of certain speech and certain voices above others, and the continued censorship of marginalized groups like sex workers who use platforms to find safer work, or leftist organizers who build movements contrary to capitalism and everything the billionaires who own these platforms hold dear. Something tells me censorship of those communities will continue, and protections for other marginalized groups will go out the window. Because the reality is that the internet is still an incredibly new and novel thing, especially in the legal world. We do not know how to regulate it. And discussions over free speech on the internet and how to regulate that speech are truly in their infancy, both in society, but also in legislation and in courts, trying to fit the internet into already established legal principles. It doesn't often fit cleanly, and we're still trying to figure out what that means. One gaping, giant-wide gap in our understanding of the internet and its effects in the real world is our ability, or lack thereof, to connect online hate speech with real-world violence. Laws barring speech that imminently incites violence were written before anyone anywhere could write anything, and it could be instantly seen by the literal entire world. The type of online speech that incites real-world violence and chaos is different than the type we think of in the real world, like yelling fire in a crowded theater, for example. Until the law has caught up with technology enough for us to be able to protect marginalized communities from the very real violence that online speech causes, the only protection available to them and to us is through content moderation, for better or for worse. So while conversations will continue over what type of content moderation is best, I don't think there's one clear answer, because it is overall an imperfect answer to the lack of effective legal protections and guardrails around online speech. Until that happens, no matter the moderation level, it is the most marginalized among us who will continue to bear the brunt of the consequences of hate speech online.